She thumps a cane and drinks champagne. She's formidable and judgmental, but we can guarantee that she's a quintessential Lady D, who recognizes great potential. What would Danbury do?
Welcome to What Would Danbury Do, your guide to Julia Quinn's Bridgerton series from A to V. This episode, we check in on Michael and Francesca 3 years into their marriage. And this time, it's not just a second epilogue, it's a full-blown baby log. So before we start, this episode has a content warning for discussions of infertility and pregnancy issues. Don't forget you can join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram as @BridgertonPod and use the hashtag WWDDPod. We'd extra love to hear from you this episode because somebody hasn't done her homework.
Adele, do you want to start with names? I feel like you never get to be first name.
I know. It just doesn't really bother me, though.
Jump in.
Hi, I'm Adele.
This is why you're not allowed to, because you fuck it up.
You set a level of sass that the rest of us can only aspire to.
In my head, what would happen on The Bachelorette, but I don't watch it, so I don't know. Okay. Hi, I'm Adele.
I'm Kate.
And I'm Rudy. Confession. I haven't finished it's only an epilogue and I've not finished it.
It's like 10 pages long. I mean, honestly, from the first page, you can probably tell exactly where it finishes. And you would not be wrong.
I was like, oh, okay, we're counting stuff. We're counting her periods. She definitely desperately wants a baby. Michael now wants a baby. Cool. And then I put it down and I've not picked it up since.
We'll give you 3 chances to figure it out.
All right, let me think of some possibilities. So, the second epilogue opens with Francesca talking about how many periods she has had in 3 years, and also reflecting on the fact that she sometimes cries to herself because she has not had a baby yet and she really wants a baby. So I think that this ends with her getting a dog.
Oh, for fuck's sake. No, she gets a house plant. You're wrong.
Oh, right. Cactus?
A cat. She gets a whole little succulent garden.
Oh, look, it's just that thing of it's not even that I didn't not finish because it was boring or anything. It is boring, but I just ran out of time, and also I was like, Kate and Adele will figure it out. I trust you guys. It's a sign of respect.
I feel so respected right now. That's 100% the feeling I'm getting from you.
I thought so.
Look, I think the thing about this epilogue, objectively, When He Was Wicked is probably the strongest of the Bridgerton books. And this epilogue just leaned so heavily into romance tropes to the point of to the point of conventionality that I wouldn't be surprised if you were bored. There's no surprises in it whatsoever. It was very much just somebody is sad because they can't have a baby, and then whoops, miracle baby for Francesca. It's the miracle baby that proves that their love is for real or whatever. And it's just such an overused trope. It's such a damaging trope. I was disappointed. I think if it had been any of the other couples, I wouldn't have been as disappointed. But because When He Was Wicked was so strong, and because it did sort of deal with Francesca's infertility or an inability to carry her baby to term, I don't know. It felt lazy. I was irritated because it felt lazy. Besides all of the other reasons why I find this trope so irritating, it didn't feel like Francesca and Michael deserved it, I guess.
And it could have been told in like 4 sentences. Michael and Francesca are happy. Francesca gets sad when she's not pregnant again. Francesca has to hang out with her very fertile family and see their happiness secondhand and feels bad. Then she gets up the duff. The end.
All right, let's just dig it right into this because we're going to be perilously close to my What the Featherington. They have sex outside, and that's when she gets pregnant. But B, like, she's in the company with her family, and she's all happy, and she, realizes that, she's happy even if she doesn't have a child, and sharing the pain of not being able to have a baby has released it a little bit, and she's more confident and comfortable in her skin and whatever. And then they have alfresco intercourse, and
so
bam,
she's
pregnant.
rewarded because she stops caring about it so much.
Yeah, and it falls into that also that, if you just relax, then it will happen, which is also really, like, it puts so much pressure on the woman anyway, as if you can control your body's functionality by, smiling more. Like, if you smile more, then you'll totally get what you want. And it's just...
Sorry, I'm just having the most horrific idea of, like, how, like, there's that whole thing of men telling women to smile more, and just this idea that they're doing that so that you become more fertile. Just horrific.
The thing that thing about, telling women to relax and it'll just happen. When you stop worrying about it, that's when it happens. It, like, you hear, that's a cliche and a trope. So to have it built in and then rewarded in this story, I was really wanted Francesca to be happy, and I knew that having a baby was something that she really wanted, and so I wanted that for her. I'm just upset at the way that Julia Quinn wrote that story for her.
Well, I mean, I guess, and this is the problem that I've kind of always had with epilogues generally, and these second epilogues more specifically, is that it locks the characters into a particular future for readers. I've spent years imagining Francesca and Michael as, like, actually kind of quite happy with not having children. Like, yeah, it's something that it would have been nice, but it's like, I guess, to have something that is, like, canonically saying that that's not right. Not only is she not happy, but she's actually devastated by not having children for 3 years. And then, yeah.
I'm really sure that Julia Quinn didn't mean it this way, but it sort of also suggests that the reason that Francesca wasn't having children earlier was because she was so worried about it. So if she just relaxed sooner, then she could be absolutely drowning in babies by this point in time. But no, she was so uptight and worried about it that she couldn't go ahead and conceive. Now she can.
She had a miscarriage, but could have been a stillbirth because she was quite far along, right?
The timings were a little unclear.
Being worried is not being irrational.
Maybe that is, like, the fundamental problem that I had with this, is that it started in the wrong place. Like, start from the 6-month mark, start from the whatever.
Or start from the minute when the baby lasts longer than her original miscarriage. And see that, but Julia Quinn shies away from that at every turn with this episode, with this epilogue, because, Francesca gets pregnant and then she's like, everything's gonna be fine. I totally know it. And I'm like,
you totally knew it last time too.
It's just, there's so many of those little irritating things all wrapped up into this one epilogue. And I thought Francesca was a more interesting character who deserved a more interesting story.
I will say what I did like was Quinn showcase it's better to talk to someone about it than keep it all inside and try to be stoic. That there is something healthy and a bit of a release to share your pain with someone else And I did like that conversation with Violet. And the thing is, you can feel really happy for someone else about their pregnancy and not make it about you. All my friends who have struggled to become pregnant or stay pregnant are ecstatic for people in their life who have pregnancies and have babies, that it's two separate things, that it's not taking away from them. And I liked that was also depicted about Francesca, that she could be happy for her siblings and that they weren't really sure how to diplomatically share that. They didn't want to like rub her nose in it, but they also didn't want to squash the happiness of the couple that were having the baby. And I that all rang pretty true to me, so I thought that was pretty well done.
I liked the bit actually where Violet was reeling off the people who were pregnant. I think Eloise was one of them. Then she said Lucy, and Francesca's like, what, again? And I was like, same, Francesca. Hard same. I was reading on Twitter, oh God, I have no idea. Time has no meaning anymore. But there was this beautiful little discussion about not asking people if they have kids, because there's so many people who struggle with infertility or with the inability to carry a child to term, and that can be a really painful subject. But you can ask, do you have children in your life? Because that takes into account things like niblings. It takes into account godchildren, and or if you're a scout leader, like my daughter just came home from, or something like that. Like, there are ways to have that conversation with people without falling into heteronormative traps about what a successful relationship should entail, but B, also being sensitive about what somebody may have gone through that is born invisibly as opposed to visibly.
I think that's a really good point. I'm someone who's at an age now, if I wanted to have children, it would be difficult. But also I don't really want to. At one point, yes, but not at my age anymore and not alone. But if you asked me about my kids, I would quite happily tell you about my two nieces and my dogs. And they mean just as much to me as, other people's children in their lives. So, and I was a teacher for a long time, and I loved every single one of those kids too. And I know it's not the same as having your own kid, but then that's diminishing kids that are adopted and found families. And I think we really do need to look at family in a much more non-traditional, non-hetero blood way. And I think that's kind of what's kind of a bit unexciting about the Francesca and Michael is, why didn't they adopt? Why didn't they go a bit more of an interesting route? Because I don't think Eloise loves Amanda and Oliver just as much as, the babies she has thereafter. So it's...
Do you mean the other way around with that?
Do you mean the other way? She loves them as much?
Oh, sorry. It was just so obvious and predictable and lazy, as Kate was saying. But there are nice moments in it as well, as Quinn is always want to do. It's never just bad.
No. Well, and I mean, as you were saying, like the conversation, like that conversation that happens between Francesca and Eloise about how Eloise feels about Amanda and Oliver after she has her biological children, and how she's like, no, it doesn't make the difference. When you commit to love the child, then you love them. You don't start creating hierarchies, I guess.
I mean, unless you're me.
Dick.
Well, unless you're Rudy, in which case.
I live for hierarchies.
Do you rank your siblings?
I was about to say I only have one, but that's not true. So yeah, apparently.
I will tell you the one thing that knocked me out of this story. It was when he called her Franny, and and I read it as Fanny. So I actually thought that he was like saying, oh yes, Fanny. And I was like, what? Anyway, but the point is, because they had sex al fresco, and because she was in charge, or even her orgasm is different. It's hold on, I will give you a direct quote. It's softer and stronger at the same time.
Damn it, you just got my WTF.
Oh, I'm so sorry. All right, hold on. We'll transition to WTF.
So we're led to believe that the success of this meeting of the sperm and the egg is because of vitamin D and some dom tendencies?
I thought that you were going to challenge softer and stronger at the same time.
Yeah, I actually thought that's where you were going to.
But also, like, a guy knowing he's impregnated someone, no. And that her orgasm is suddenly different because they've been successful. Versus, I have heard lots of women say they knew they were pregnant straight away. That I would believe. I do not believe that Michael was like, this orgasm is different because we're having our child finally. Like, which he didn't know at the time, obviously. But it's supposed to indicate that something miraculous is happening. Because her orgasm was like an oxymoron.
Oxymoronic orgasms always lead to impregnation.
I need to write that down.
If we want to talk WTFs, mine comes a little bit later in the story. Namely, how she gets pregnant and goes through her entire pregnancy and gives birth to a baby and never bothers to tell anybody about it. She just shows up at family gathering. No, oh, I forgot, Rudy. Oh, yes. So they have this oxymoronic orgasm. Then off they go back to Scotland. She carries the baby, has the baby, shows up at a family reunion a year later and says to her mother, baby.
That's just fucking shit. If I was Violet, I would be mortally wounded by that.
I don't know. I'm still kind of... I just learned about it.
Up.
But,
Really?
like, I'm still
Yeah.
catching up. But it just doesn't seem in character. That doesn't track
Let
for
me
how
read this to you.
Bridgertons behave in general.
I'm going to read it to you so that you can
Yeah, please
experience
do.
the whole wonder of this. Okay, ready? She was positively radiant. I missed you, Mother, she said. And I'm like, bullshit, says I. Violet would have made a reply, but she found herself unexpectedly choked up. She felt her lips pressed together, then twitch at the corners as she fought to contain her tears. She didn't know why she was so emotional. Yes, it had been over a year, but hadn't she gone 342 days before? This was not so very different. I have something for you, Francesca said. And Violet could have sworn her eyes were glistening too. And I'm like, yes, they were glistening, you duplicitous bastard of a daughter. Whatever. I hope it's guilt that's making your eyes glisten. Francesca turned back to the carriage and held out her arms. A maid appeared in the doorway holding some sort of bundle, which she then handed down to her mistress. Violet gasped. Dear God, it couldn't be. Mother, Francesca said softly, cradling the precious little bundle. This is John.
All right. And this is so much worse if you think about the fact that in their residence in Scotland lives John's mother and Michael's mother.
Who also got to know, who would have known way ahead of time. So, like, Francesca not only didn't tell anybody in her family, she also apparently swore everybody else to secrecy as well.
Oh,
Cunt.
she's well and truly chosen to be a sterling, hasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people talk about... Oh, no, they call it's secret baby. I was going to say, people talk about surprise baby trope. No, that's not what it's called. Secret baby trope.
It's a secret baby.
Yeah, so, like,
Well,
people
and-
talk about secret baby trope, but it is never... I mean, it's typically not done this way.
It's not a secret baby isn't the one that you keep from your caring and supportive mother who you love very much and have an excellent relationship with. Like,
Who maintains boundaries in a good, positive, respectful way. Just shat on Violet. Violet doesn't deserve that. Neither
Yeah.
does, like, Eloise.
Yeah, like, if you're going to do secret baby trope, you keep it a secret from Michael.
mm-hmm. But also to let the mothers-in-law know first and for that much longer.
It
It would be a brown baby if we go by a Dev Patel Michael theory.
Oh, this is adding some elements to it that, like, I'm going to rethink my position. I didn't have much of a position in the first place, but, like,
Or you
because
didn't have. You didn't
because
have
I
any
didn't
interest.
read it. I know, we can't, there are only so
But
many
how
times.
dare you have an opinion without having all the facts?
That's why I'm working my way through it right now. This is not a hard and fast opinion. I'm just talking through options. Because now I'm thinking about working from the logic that Kat Mayo made up in the first place. Michael's mum would have to be the one who is not white, because we're running on the theory that John was white, and it's his father and Michael's father are brothers. So Francesca's mother-in-law is not white, but her former mother-in-law is. And there's, because when you have an interracial relationship that results in children, it puts a different spin on it. Because, like, one of the reasons that I forget my other brother and sister is because they're white. They don't count as much. I guess the thing is, like, and I'm pulling this from, I wish I could remember specifically who said it, but I'm pulling this from an episode of a podcast that I love called So Many White Guys that Phoebe Robinson hosts. And each season she interviews a bunch of different people, and she only ever lets one straight white guy be a guest, and he has to represent, like, the entirety of straight white men. But there was this one guest that she had on who, like, Phoebe was really kind of locked into this idea of, like, oh, but, like, you're from an interracial family, and, like, you've got a white parent and a black parent, and, like, so it's so interesting to me that you were raised to only really think about your blackness. And she goes to her, did you really think I was gonna, like, miss white culture? That's not. And there's a part of me that is like, did you really think that her kids are gonna miss Bridgerton culture? Like, that's not possible. So maybe she's made a choice where she's like, do you know what? Like, it's gonna happen. So I'm just gonna give the other side, like, a little bit more kind of time to build a foundation.
I mean, she's largely rejected Bridgerton culture, except being competitive. That standoffishness and removed nature is something that's been common the whole time.
Guys, new theory. Just rolling through them. Francesca did not keep her pregnancy or baby a secret. She was actually there the whole time. They just didn't see her.
She's just so quiet. You know, she doesn't talk a lot. So it's totally valid that they didn't see her at the other side of the dining room table.
Notice.
Well, and also because the only person she talks to is Michael, and he wasn't there, so she wasn't.
She was on the periphery for a fucking year.
Here's a question. Do you think that Julia Quinn reread the books in which she had to epilogue before she wrote the epilogue, or did she just do it from memory?
I would suggest that she probably didn't. There's a lot of little inconsistencies through these epilogues that suggest that even if she did, then it was a skim read more than anything else. But I mean, so each of the epilogues are introduced with a little author's note, I guess, at the beginning, and they often reference reader questions. So I wonder if perhaps she just wrote the epilogues based on the kinds of questions that she was getting from fans, or the comments that they were making, like the loudest comments that were about each book.
That explains so much if that is what happened. Like, that explains so much of our experience of the epilogues, really.
Yeah, so they're entirely fan service, and it makes sense that she would write the epilogues based entirely around what fans wanted from each book.
But also, like, a particular type of fan, because, you know, there are people like us who categorized as fans that also didn't necessarily need these questions answered.
I mean, have you
So what
ever
you're
written a
saying-
fan letter to a writer, though?
Now, finally, it's time for...
What would Danbury do?
This is where we imagine that a character from another favourite book has written to the terror of the Tarn, Lady Danbury, to ask for advice. So this letter comes from Diana Miller from The Minotaur's Kiss by Erin St Charles. Dear Lady Danbury, it was meant to be a one-night stand, but this guy won't leave me alone. And sure, he has a man mountain of beefcake to offer and smells like smoke, but it was meant to be a one and done. Except Mac, the Minotaur shifter, now works alongside of me, unwanted, and impregnated. And impregnated. Oh my God, no. Can I say up the duff? No?
No.
All right. Is it in or impregnated me?
Impregnated.
Impregnate.
I got
Impregnated.
it right. I was correcting in my head while I was saying it. It was bad. Okay. And impregnated me. What do I do? This was only ever meant to be temporary.
I have questions.
So do I.
Can I just preface this by saying the epilogue we read for this episode is not like what you'd normally see in a romance book of like a couple struggling to have children. So I looked at like unexpected babies and then I went, what the fuck? I'll read something outside of my zone, and went to paranormal romance and ended up in this shifter Minotaur series, and 2 days later have read 3 books in the series. So it was a bit of a wormhole, but yeah.
So the Minotaur
Yes.
had a bull's head and a human body.
Yes.
So when they shift, they just shift their head?
He becomes larger and his facial features shift, but he doesn't become like bull-like. No, he does not fuck her in Minotaur form.
I mean, if we were to go down this path, which, why the hell not? I would say that being fucked in Minotaur form is less bestiality than other shifter
Agreed.
sex would be.
Mine is not so much a question as a comment. Like, I just find it interesting, and I wish that I had actually, like, done not just the proper reading for this, but, like, a little bit extra homework. Because there are some, like, there's a literary discourse around infertility being monstrous and also hyperfertility being monstrous. And I think that it's really fascinating that we have not entirely planned it, but we've managed to juxtapose both versions, like, next to each other.
Is he afraid of mazes?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have read more books in the series since, so
That's all
I mean, I
right.
should probably get over my very many questions about Minotaur shifting and actually answer the question.
Well, I
which
was
is the
going
whole
to
point
say,
of
the
this
question
segment.
on the table is that it was
What
a
do you do
one-night
when
stand.
you're one night stand? Does she know that he's a Minotaur shifter, but when she has sex with him, or does that sort of come out afterwards?
So she has a dormant aspect to her DNA is that she can smell shifters, and certain shifters smell a certain way. She doesn't disclose that.
Does
to
he
people,
smell
but-
like pine trees in Man? No,
No.
wait, the ocean in Man.
It has to
smells
be
like
leather in
blood.
man because he is a bull.
I see what you did there.
Shifter. You could be a dog shifter. You could be a lot of different animal shifters.
Basically, she has a one night stand. She knows he's a shifter. Does she know that he's a Minotaur, or she just knows that he's a shifter?
Well, Minotaurs are quite rare, so he doesn't disclose that for quite some time. But she also doesn't disclose that she knows he's a shifter.
Okay. So anyway, so they have hot sex, and then Shiva moses, and then he shows up at her workplace.
Yeah, and they work together on this case to find a missing shifter.
So, okay, I'm ready to put myself
Hit me.
in Lady Danbury's shoes. I've got the cane. I'm ready. She's going to recommend you just move to Scotland.
They're in the US.
That's it. You can hide all manner of things in Scotland,
you can
yourself
hide
included.
In Scotland in an AU, for sure.
But if she's in Scotland, does that mean that Nessie is also in fact a shifter?
Look, probably, but I'm just saying that Lady Danbury would recognize you can hide all manner of things in Scotland, including yourself. We've learnt that today.
We have.
So if Diana truly wants to escape him, just go to Scotland.
Just go to Scotland. Nothing ever happens in Scotland. Nobody else finds it.
No, she's too dedicated to her career and her twin and her niblings and...
You can find problems with the advice, but you asked for advice.
I would say that Lady Danbury would say, you can have it all, just don't let him, just don't give up your principles in order to make don't be the only one giving up in order to make the relationship work. Make sure that he's doing some compromises as well.
I think that's some great advice.
And if he does, in fact, try and take advantage of you, Scotland is still there. Scotland is always an option.
Always.
Let's be honest, leaving the US is probably always a good opportunity.
I have noticed there is a trend in my advice when I'm the one giving it. And a lot of the time it's just disengage.
Ice them out.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is why I'm not a romance author. Because I'm sign of conflict, I'm out.
That's all for this episode of What Would Danbury Do? We'll be back in a fortnight with a second epilogue for It's in His Kiss. In the meantime, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as @BridgertonPod, or send us an email at bridgertonpod@gmail.com. You can also rate us or leave a review on your favorite podcast provider, or tell your friends about us. Doing one or all of these things will help us continue to grow. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded land of the Gadigal, Wurundjeri, and Boonwurrung people, and edited by audio producer Rudy Bremer on Gadigal country. Thanks for listening, and remember, WWDD.
What Would Danbury Do is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.